Podcast by Friday with Bill Griggs and Kingsley Grant. We help people to create their minimal viable podcast by taking bold action to defeat procrastination and to get their voices heard.
I am Kingsley Grant.
And I'm Bill Griggs.
And we are the hosts of Podcast by Friday. And this is episode 19. And on today's show, we are going to talk about the powerful behind-the-scenes website hosting and website building tools. These tools, we believe, that are very important because we use them ourselves. We're going to pull the curtain back, so to speak, and give you an inside view of what we use and why. We hear us talk about that, so stay tuned as we get started.
Kingsley, great to talk to you today.
Yeah, it's really, Bill, as always, to be able to sit across from you in a sense, even though we're not in the same room, but in two different states, but sit across and have this conversation, especially about the podcasting and Podcast by Friday. Man, it's always a thrill.
Yeah, you know, Kingsley, we've been putting out quite a few episodes lately, and I think it's time that we did an episode that will really help our listeners to get where they're going faster. And, you know, some of the best things that we do are leading by example. You know, we show people, you know, how we do things and what we use and, you know, what tools help us. And, you know, by sharing that information with them, it gives them a better chance at success and you know, being able to take bold action.
Yeah, I think that part of what I know the frustration that I had earlier on in my podcasting journey, and from the people we've spoken to, you know, both individually or together when we had gone to Podcast Movement and other places, one of the frustration I hear is, man, I just don't know what tools to use. I just don't know where to you know, what to use to host my show, that, for example, or that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking that, hey, you know, what if we just kind of put ourselves back to when we were there and what would we have liked to hear and then make that available to our listener?
Yeah, I think that's it's a wonderful idea. Now, there were a lot of choices that we had to make early on that we had no real information before we made those choices. You know, one of the things that came up for me was, you know, web hosting. I mean, did I need web hosting? What was web hosting? I mean, you know, and it all came down to the fact that if I was going to have my podcast out there, I needed a home for it. And, you know, that home is a website, basically. And now I didn't know really very much about websites and, you know, what they were. But I found out through a lot of searching and a lot of reading and watching YouTube videos and things that it's called web hosting. You know, now most people know what web hosting is today, but when we got started, you know, that was still kind of an unusual thing. So, Kingsley, how would you describe what web hosting is? And I'll tell what my thoughts are on it as well.
You know, I think before I answer that, what struck me when you said, you know, you were doing the research, YouTube and all the different places, try to figure out what you needed. I thought about how long that takes.
Oh yeah,
in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea behind Podcast by Friday is to expedite matters so that it doesn't take. And here's it: we pay the price. We've kind of done that legwork and that research and that time, and just trying to make it much easier. So going back to your question about a website, about hosting a website, that's what your question was, right? See, I quickly forgot about that because I was so excited about wanting to make sure that our listener heard that piece you mentioned. I thought it was so key that we didn't want to overlook that, because they're probably feeling the frustration that, man, research, and that takes forever. And we want to kind of shorten that distance for them and shrink their time.
Yeah, I was just asking, what you think web hosting is. What do you know about it?
I think you liken the fact to about where on the web that you have your residence. So I look at, for example, I live in Florida, and we have in our city this big plot of land that a number of homes all have their own address and a place where they could call, that's my house. So you go on Google, and now you don't, as you're listening, don't go and do any Google search on me right now, okay? Try to figure out where I live. You know how the Google thing, and look at your address. I'm not going to give you my address.
You just added the challenge now.
Yeah, right. So the point,
we may edit this out.
Leave it in. So the thing is that what happened, I think, is where I am located, and it's where my residence is. I know where to go to find it. I know where to invite people to come to my house. And so web hosting for me is like that, where I can tell people, hey, man, come over to my house. Here is where it resides, on this street, this piece of land, this number. That's where you'll find me. That's what I think about when I think of web hosting.
Mm-hmm. See, you bring up the point of it being your home. And, your home is where you keep all your stuff. And, it's where it's where everything happens. Okay. That home has an address, and that address, in this analogy, is our URL. That's our domain. That's the name. In our case, it's podcastbyfriday.com. That's our domain. Okay. And our domain is hosted with a particular web hosting company, which is the home for all of our stuff. And so that's what we, that's the way I think about it. Now, when I got started, I didn't know whether I needed separate companies to have that function. A separate company to give me my domain address, and a separate company to host my content or my website. And it turns out you can do it. You could separate those things, but it's really probably a waste of your effort at this point in your career. You probably want a one-stop solution for that, for your domain name registration and your web hosting.
And I think, Bill, that's a good point you're making, because I remember when I was buying my house, I wanted to go to one place and have them take care of everything. I didn't want to have to go to this one, person who was selling the house and go over here to have some other person to do the other part. I just want to can I just find one place? It makes it easier, simpler. So I think what you're describing is that very same idea. What's that one place you can go to and get everything done? And so you mentioned about the hosting idea. So what's that place you want to discuss or describe to them, Bill, where they can get those things done, and what can they get done there? Okay.
Our web host, the one that we use and we've been using since Podcast by Friday came out, and even before that when we did our first websites, is Bluehost. Bluehost.com is the company that is our web hosting service. And there's a lot of reasons why we use them, and when you think about why we need web hosting, then you think about, okay, where should I have that hosting? And it's kind of easy. Why we need web hosting is to have a place to keep all of our content in one place that's easy to find, that is identifiable by people. If you go to podcastbyfriday.com, you're going to see stuff about our podcast there. Okay. And without a place for all of our content to be easily accessible by you, it would be difficult to find us. And, so we need web hosting to make it easier for people to find us. Okay. And go ahead, Kingsley, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I think what I was going to say is that you mentioned earlier about Bluehost, and yes, there are other places they can go. So I want to make sure that if they heard of other names, But what we've found has worked for us, and we've found it very reliable, and we have used it for not just Podcast by Friday, but other sites that we do, but we'll individually have. And one thing you and I were discussing earlier was we've never had, I can't remember where I've had a major issue. I've had some issues, but nothing major where it was not quickly remedied that Bluehost encountered that kind of really threw me for a loop. As a matter of fact, I've had issues and I will call them and they will get on there and spend as many time as far as, customer service to help me to get it remedied. So I really find that, I would not go anywhere else really, because I've had great service with them. And even though they might have others, but I find, like you described earlier, the reliability and the service, and just they've been around for a long time. I'm going to stay with that,
Yeah, I've been on Bluehost for about 7 years, and I don't recall a time when my website has been down at all in that 7 years. And that's pretty impressive.
Yes.
Now, could it have been down at 3 a.m. when I was asleep? Or that's possible, but I never saw it. I never had anybody call me up. Hey, your website's not there. I was looking for it. So the reliability is a major factor. When you're considering a web host. Now, before we go any further in talking about this, not only do I use Bluehost, but I'm also a Bluehost affiliate. And whether you know what that means or not, I'm just going to spend about 1 minute and tell you what an affiliate is. Because I know this company, I like the company, and I have trusted the company with my business. I looked to see whether they had a program where I can help them promote the business, because I think they do a good job, and that is an affiliate relationship. So if you were to go to any of the links that we give you later on in this show to Bluehost and check it out, it wouldn't cost you anything additional, but Bluehost would recognize the fact that you came to them through us, and they would send us a small commission. Okay. So, getting that out there so up front that this relationship exists, and it's one of the ways that we finance this podcast. And, it's a pretty low contact thing. We use them, we like them, and so we recommend them.
And, as the saying goes, you do business with those people you know, like, and trust. And we have had this relationship with Bluehost for a long time, even before becoming an affiliate. So it's not because we're an affiliate now we're pushing Bluehost. No, we've done it for many years. I know I've done it for many years before an affiliate relationship has formed. So it's like, if it's worked for us and it's a good thing, why not? Like you're saying earlier, Bill. Mm-hmm. And I think also, which I think has been mentioned, that the cost of getting Bluehost, to purchasing Bluehost is so very low.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not going to go into the specifics of what it costs, but right. You could, probably host a website for, depending on your sign up, $6 a month, $7 a month. Yeah. It depends on the promotion you catch. That's not a whole lot of money when you think about it. You look at companies like Google and, other places, that have built enormous industries off of their web hosting, off of their domain. And you think about what the initial investment was to get started, it's nothing.
Right.
So, there's unlimited potential with these things. And your mileage may vary, of course, but, when you think about it, it's a no-brainer, in my opinion.
And I think also, too, Bill, that, you're going to have to host your website someplace. I mean, no matter what you do, you're going to have to host it someplace. And we're just saying to you, hey, one of the better choices we've found for all the hosting sites we know out there, Bluehost is, to us, is par excellence. Mm-hmm. It's beyond what others I know of. So we have no hesitation to mention Bluehost as a place to host your website, because you have to host it someplace no matter what you do.
Yep. Now, not every company is for everybody. There are other companies out there. There's many of them that, you name it. You've probably seen commercials for many of their competitors. GoDaddy is one, HostGator, Namecheap. There's a million web hosting services out there. And you should choose the one that fits you the best. Okay. The one that fits us best right now is Bluehost. So that's who we go about. So let's move on, and we'll talk about, some of the reasons of why we think Bluehost is good. For one thing, for me, it's pretty easy to use. When I go to their site and I have a domain that I want to register, I just type in the name and search it. If it's available, it tells me. Okay. And then I can go from there and decide if I want to get that domain. Once I click that, they set up the hosting for me right there, and it's ready to go right now. And there's no long waiting period after you click the button. In fact, I'm going to make a screen share video and show you just how quick it is, because I believe you can actually put up a website in under 5 minutes, and that might be a challenge to listeners to show that. But why not? I'll show you how to do it. But it's saving me time and money, because I'm able to take care of this one.
A one-stop shop type of thing.
Yeah. I was going to say it's a fundamental thing to your online business and your online podcast to have hosting, and making this as simple as possible is the goal. So if you like, you can go to podcastbyfriday.com/5-minute website. Number 5-minute website. And you'll see a video there, and I'll walk you through it.
And on top of that, Bill, I know that you mentioned about the web hosting. We talk in a good length about Bluehost, but I think another important part of what our listener needs, wants to know and want to talk about, because I know that was true for me, is about like WordPress, and they've heard many about WordPress, and some people, what is WordPress? And there's two different, two different approaches, and people think, oh, I must go to WordPress.com. No, that's not where you want to go. It's WordPress.org you want to go. And there's a reason for that, right? So, Bill, what would the difference is as we get into this segment?
Well, WordPress is a web page design, content creation platform. Okay. And there's two versions. There's the one that WordPress owns that has their name after it. Mm-hmm. And then there's the one that you own that has your .com name after it, that just happens to use WordPress's functionality. And that's the kind you want. Because it's like we were discussing the other day in one of our episodes, that you want to own your content. Okay, you want it to be yours. You don't want some other company or some other organization to be in control of your content and have control over whether it stays up on the site or moves away in case they fail. In this case, WordPress, a WordPress hosted site is different from a site which uses WordPress. And we want a site that uses WordPress, not necessarily a WordPress hosted site.
Yeah, I think when you were saying that we're going to shift gears shortly here, but I think the idea is you don't want to put your house on someone else's land. They can always come and say, hey, I need my land, and what do you do then? So WordPress.com is their land, and you don't want to put your house on their land. You want to put it on your land, so it's your house, it's your land.
Okay. So, one of the interesting things about WordPress is it's got tabs and things, and you go in there and you control the appearance of the web page and the structure of the blog, and how dates are recorded and things like that. And it really takes care of a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for your website. The problem with WordPress is most of the sites end up looking the same, and it can sometimes be a little harder to manage. So we don't actually do our web pages inside of WordPress's native program. We use another program called WP Profit Builder to do ours. And WP Profit Builder is actually a drag and drop web page creating software. And that's what we use.
And there are, people will say, well, what's the difference between that? Because they have out there other platforms like, Wix and Weebly and Squarespace. And those have the functionality of drag and drop, but they're not built on a WordPress platform. And majority of the web pages around, of course, the highest percentage of web pages around the world are built on WordPress. And so the functionality that you get from having a theme that is WordPress compatible, thank you, that's the word I'm looking for, is going to be what you need. And I think I love what you said earlier, Bill, that you don't want to look like everybody else, and WordPress will give you those templates that it's everybody who builds within what they are saying, here's how you build it, which is okay, it's fine, you can start with that. But if you want to stand out, then I think WP Profit Builder give you a really the flexibility, the functionalities you need, and it makes it so much easier. I just had someone this past week ask me the question about the very same thing and said, where do you build your website? And I said, well, WP Profit Builder. And I sent them to my two other sites, and they said, wow, that's what I need because it's so easy. I said, yeah, it's very simple. I was able to do this, and I told them how long it took me to do and something they asked specifically about. And I said, no, I did it very easy through WP Profit Builder.
Yeah. Now, we built the CNC router tips page with WP Profit Builder. I built the Podcast by Friday page with it, with Success Caribbean style with it. What have we done?
Smooth Career Change. The midlife launch. I've done about four different websites I've done, including Podcast by Friday and CNC router that we know have as quickly. That's about 6 websites right there.
Yeah, and when we did Podcast by Friday last fall, when we did the web page in a couple of days.
Yeah.
Just because we were going for a minimal viable web page, in fact, we just got around to putting up the about page, I think, if I'm not kidding, because for a while, all we were rolling with was the resources page and the home page.
Yep.
It showed our episodes on the page, and it showed the resources that we use so that people can, help and get started quicker. So, it was very simple for us to get up a podcast that looked good, or a web page that looked good for our podcast and was functional and was easy to change, and that's why we did that. So, that's one of the reasons why we chose to use WP Profit Builder when we got started, and that's one of the reasons why we're still using it. The good part. You mentioned WordPress being on most of the websites. If you had to go out and pay somebody to do web development, it's much easier to find a WordPress developer, somebody who's familiar with WordPress, than any of those other non-WordPress platforms. But it's expensive, and being able to do it on your own, by just dragging and dropping whatever it is you wanted with templates or with, things that are pre-built for you, that was the advantage to me of using the WP Profit Builder when we got started. So for me, it was really kind of simple because I could look at some of these templates that they had included. There was like 100 templates included in the thing.
Yes, there's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that did different things. Like if I wanted a mailing list page or whatever, I could just load a mailing list template in there, and it would give me the functionality I needed to grab somebody's email address, their name, and whatever, and it would integrate with MailChimp, which is who we use, or Aweber, or whoever we were using for our mail service, right away. And so I didn't have to think a whole lot about how it would go. Yeah, I'd look at change the colors or maybe something else, but it wasn't hard, and there were things that were already made for me, and that really was valuable to me. And I'm really kind of looking forward to the new Profit Builder that's about to come out, that has some things that are built in that we're going to use to grow our business more, like the ability to create a funnel. We'd have to explain what a funnel is to our listeners, but a funnel is basically the path that your listener takes from the first time they see you until they get to a decision whether to join your mailing list or to buy your product or whatever, the steps that happen and the pages that you want them to see. You can lay all of that out in the new Profit Builder, and it monitors that and keeps stats for you. And, to me, that's really cool.
And I think what also is the beauty about WP Profit Builder is it's a fraction of the cost of what people would pay to get what you're describing earlier, all that done, Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the beauty about it. And it's very reliable. Again, here go the word reliability is there as well. We've used it, and it's really they do a great job of updating the plugins and so on. So again, going back to plugins, where these are just I guess widgets, or how you describe a plugin is just really a software that's created to run a certain function within WordPress to get you something you might need that is not necessarily
part of the base package.
Standard. Yeah, right.
Yeah, the plugins are add-ons and additions. Right. Most people are familiar with the concept of a plugin, but like if you wanted, for instance, let's go back to the mail list, the mailing list example. Somebody wanted to keep a mailing list. Well, there are plugins that do just that you can add on top of WordPress, that would take care of your emailing list. There are other plugins that might look after your search engine optimization on your page. There are plugins like the one that we use on our site, which better organizes and displays your podcasts episodes. So there are plugins like that, and a lot of that functionality that you can get from adding separate plugins was already built into WP Profit Builder right from the start. So you didn't have to go out and source all of these things, and you could still use the plugins. Right. But in the most cases, you didn't have to do it. Like I did a T-shirt drive the other day, and Teespring T-shirt company is one that I used, and they have a little plugin that you pop into your WordPress site that shows people the T-shirt that you want to order and the sizes and the colors and the availabilities and everything, and you can place orders through that. Well, Profit Builder has their own T-shirt thing built in, and if you wanted to, you could create your own T-shirt campaign to do it. Now, I didn't, that's just one example of the many things that you could do. But
right. And I think also what I really like, one of the things that I like about the plugins and the functionality of WP Profit Builder, which most websites do have, is those pop-ups that can really trigger your person who's looking at your site to immediately take action to do something. And it's all there, and it's just so easy. I must say there is a little learning curve that gets you initially to get started. But what I love about this, it's all laid out. There's video driven. You can really follow step by step. I mean, he even have one of the templates already made for you. All you gotta do is just change the words and put your own words and stuff in there. And how do I say that word?
Voila.
Voila. Yeah, exactly. Voila. You've got it, right? So I really think that WP Profit Builder, and again, there are others out there, but we've found it to be very reliable. We've used it since it's been out. I've had a copy for the last 2 or 3 years now, I think it is.
Yeah.
And then what I love is that they're from the ground up. They had a brand new launch of the next version that's coming out very soon, isn't it?
Yeah. It's launching on the 28th of March, 2017, I believe. Now, I want to. Something you just said, Kingsley, reminded me of something. My future, I'm not sure what I would call her. She would be my daughter's mother-in-law.
Okay. So. You can go ahead and figure that out, listener, as you heard. So we won't take time to explain all of that.
Yeah. But the mother of the boy that my daughter's about to marry also builds web pages, and she went with another product called Lead Pages for her to build her web pages out. And, many of the same functionalities, drag and drop, pre-made templates, the whole 9 yards. But difference between the two is the model of how you pay for Lead Pages. Now, Lead Pages is probably the industry leader on this. But it costs thousands of dollars.
Yep.
It is, and you pay for each additional module that you're going to get, and things start adding up quick. And we're talking about minimal viable podcast here and minimal viable spending whenever possible. So you can buy Profit Builder for less than you would pay for 1 month of Lead Pages. And that, to me, says it all. And you can do things. There's no doubt that you can get what you pay for. Lead Pages is a good program. So is Profit Builder. For my needs, for my own personal needs, for my own personal pocketbook, I'm with Profit Builder, man. So,
and as we're talking about, this podcast by Friday is a minimum viable product, and we're thinking about we don't want you to break the bank and to go into kind of in the red just to have a website. Again, it's how can you get this done by Friday in a very minimum viable way and at a cost that is very affordable. And again, you can, as Bill mentioned earlier, we have on the our website, Podcast by Friday, you'll see examples of what WP Profit Builder sites have been built, that we've built, that we've used that. So that would be an example to say, hey, it can be done. And of course the templates that they provide shows you, orders of other ways you can do things. So to me, your options are just like so wide and a wide selection of options you have available to you for a fraction of the cost of what you would pay for at using another software.
Yeah. Now, is our website beautiful and perfect? No, probably not.
No. I keep on changing mine all the time, but it's so easy to change that I can sit down this weekend and say I want to change my website look. Go into there by the end of the day, I have a brand new looking website just like that, without any major nothing is destroyed, nothing is out of place. It's all in place just like that.
Yeah, I didn't have to go call my my web guru, have him schedule the time to go in and make the changes, and then pay for each additional change that we made, and say, no, I don't really like it in brown, I want it in blue, and getting charged for that. No, I go and do it myself and get it done. So that's one of the advantages. I think we spent a total of 2 days, maybe 3. In our initial launch when we got Podcast by Friday going, building the web page, and then we didn't touch it. And I haven't. I'm
until recently.
And I didn't touch it for months, other than to update what episode was the latest episode on the front page. And that's it. Now, we'll see if we can get this out by the time this airs, but we should have a separate page on there that just says blog, because that really was in our plans right from the beginning, and yours truly just never got to it.
And it just makes a point again. It doesn't have to be perfect. Is that you get started. That has always been our push, has been our motto, is say, hey, get started. Start with where you're at. Even if it's 2 pages like we did, and we have been around for a while, but we just say, hey, let's just get this minimum viable web page up, again, to demonstrate that you don't have to have it all together. You can add as you go. And with, the WP Profit Builder, it gives you an option to do that. So I really think it's a great way to give people a chance to look behind the scene and see what we're doing, Bill, and share with them what we have spent so much, time and energy and money to figure out. And I think it's a great way to say, hey, guys, we want you to shorten the process, get there quickly so you can get your message and your voice out to the world. That's what we want you to do in a very quick time.
Mm-hmm. Now, I urge you to only purchase things that you really need. Okay? This is by no way saying, run right out and grab a copy of Profit Builder and get your Bluehost account if you don't need them. But if you do need those services, these are 2 good products that we stand by. And, I think you would be well served by looking into them. And they both have money-back guarantees. Isn't that great? So if you don't like them, you can move on and try something different. But at least this could get you started. And that's what this is all about, getting started, making progress, taking bold action to get your voice heard. And that's what we're all about.
And we made it so easy for them, Bill, to have access to these Bluehost and WP Profit Builder. And we have links in the show notes to you can just go there and be able to get the links and go and check it out, take it for a spin drive, kick the tires and see what it's like, and then make a decision, because I believe we're standing behind what it is we use, and we want, if it's worked for us, if it has helped us, then we want to let our own audience know that, hey, you know what, we would not sell you something, so even though we're not selling something per se, but give you something we don't use ourselves.
Yeah. And, we'll provide links in the show notes, and follow that link, and that'll take you directly to examples of both Bluehost and WP Profit Builder. And, if you take action on these steps, right now, Profit Builder is about to go through a launch of their version 2, which we were talking about just a moment ago. And this is probably the least expensive that this software will be, for the immediate future. So, if it's something that fits your plans, you might want to consider getting it while it's launching. That's all.
And if you want to get in touch with us for any reason and you want to email us, you can always you can reach us at podcastbyfriday.com. And any questions you may have. And don't forget, we have a Facebook group that you can also go in and leave some comments or ask questions there as well. And that's facebook.com/groups/podcastbyfriday. But we would love to hear from you and see what it is you might need some help on. How can we help you and take you by the hand and show you some things we've discussed? So we are available. So email us. The email come right to us. We are the ones who will answer ourselves at podcastbyfriday.com, and we'll be more than happy to get back with you and help and show you how we can help you to get to where you want to get.
What I like about doing this episode, Kingsley, is that we pull back the curtain a little bit and let people see inside of what we are doing and why we do it, and how we do it, with what software we use. The good part about doing it this way is that you get to see what we use, what we really use, and what's working for us. And success leaves clues. If you're looking for how somebody does something, just ask. And we've always been about sharing how we do things. This is the first time we've ever done an episode that could be classified as a promotional thing, but it's not really. It's just explaining to you what it is that we use and what it is and why. And we haven't even discussed yet where you're going to store your podcast content, because this is for the web page, but you actually need another kind of hosting to hold all your audio files, which are quite large. Like this one's going to be, 45 minutes, 50 minutes long. Those are long files. You don't put those where your web page is. There's another, if web hosting is your house, okay, the podcast storage is the storage unit down the block somewhere where you keep all your extras. That's where you got to keep your content in a safe place. And so we'll talk about that in a different episode. But, I just wanted to bring that up, that this was not the entirety of everything that we use and everything that we need for a podcast. But it takes our users one step closer.
We know that you received some value from this episode today, and we want, again, to hear from you, but also want to ask you if you wanted to tell us how much what this show means to you. We'd love for you to go to the iTunes and just subscribe to the show, because you can have it immediately whenever we release an episode. You'll be notified. You can get that downloaded and have a quick access to the show. And if you are so inclined, leave us a review and rating. Let us know what your thoughts are about the show. We'd really appreciate that. And again, don't forget, you can email us, and if you have that one-on-one conversation at the email provided, and all the links will be in the show notes as well for this episode.
Yeah, and don't forget to check out the video where I show you just how to set up a web page, very quickly, 5 minutes or less.
And to see that video, if you go to podcastbyfriday.com/5-minute webpage, okay, a podcast by Friday /5-minute FIVE, right, 5-minute webpage, you will be able to access and see that video that Bill just described. Okay, with that said, my friend, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we hope to hear from you very soon.